Hello, this is Chuck Ridgway, Automation Technology Manager here at Horner. Thanks for joining us for another topic on Tuesday. Now, this week we did pre-record the video because of my travel schedule. Now, I'd like to say that I'm headed off to a conference or an engineering type meeting or an automation fair where I'm going to greatly increase my knowledge of automation and the latest trends in the industry. The reality is I'm flying someplace warm to ride my bicycle. Time for some sun, time for some exercise. But while I'm bicycling, we've got a topic for you, and we think it's going to be a fun one. That is helpful Horner hacks. Now, this is a topic I've really wanted to do for some time, not only because it's fun, but because I think there's some good information I can pass to you as well. Now, just because we pre-recorded the video, we're still streaming it live on our normal Tuesday at 2 p.m. time slot. So we will be standing by to answer your questions if you're watching it live. Now, if you are, please give us those questions in the chat section. If you're watching it on replay, we still want your questions. Just give those to us in the comment section. We'll get those answered just as soon as we can. Usually it takes us a day or two, hopefully a little sooner than that. All right, let's get started. Here we go with what we hope will be a useful and a fun show today. Okay, so in today's format, first we'll show and describe the hack, then we'll give you any necessary details so you can implement it if you'd like. Let's get started. What do we mean by a hack? So, any out of the ordinary approach used to make things easier or better, maybe to solve a problem. Usually it's a minor problem or an inconvenience. Hacks often involve using different parts than you normally would in a situation, maybe putting them together in a different way to achieve a result that you're looking for. Now, today's video is going to focus on Horner hacks that make wiring easier and a couple of fun hacks that should make things better when you're working on the OCS at your desk or maybe in the lab. Our first hack. CsCAN wiring for SmartRail and SmartSticks. Okay, this hack involves SmartSticks and SmartRail I/O. This happens to be a 16-point relay output SmartSticks. This is a SmartRail CsCAN base and a couple of I/O modules attached. And these products are as you would receive them from the factory. Now imagine that you've got an OCS, let's say mounted in the door, that's driving this I/O. You're going to have a CsCAN cable coming in and landing, let's say here on the SmartSticks. You're going to have a short segment of CAN cable that's running from this SmartSticks over to the SmartRail. And then if this is the end of the line, you're going to have a terminating resistor here. And then somewhere, whether it's on one of these two nodes or maybe on the OCS side, you're going to have to land 24 volt DC power because both of these products require 24 volt DC power from the network in order to function. So with these plugs that we've included here, this is all very possible, but it's going to take some effort and some care because we've got multiple conductors in each of these terminals here on these plugs. But the first hack we're going to show you is our HE200 ACC 500 CsCAN double plug. Let's take a look at what happens if we install CsCAN double plugs instead of the standard single plugs from the factory. First thing you'll notice is they really haven't increased the footprint, if at all, probably not at all for the SmartRail and maybe by just a few millimeters for the SmartSticks. And now wiring gets a whole lot easier. We still have our cable coming in from the OCS on the door. It has its own dedicated set of terminals here to land. Our little short segment of CAN cable from here to here again has its own dedicated terminals. And then we still have a set of terminals over here to land DC power as well as to install our terminating resistor. So way cleaner, way easier, a great hack. So we definitely recommend you take a look at the double CsCAN plug, which is not standard on the SmartSticks or SmartRail. Now it is included on the SmartBlock I/O and it's also included on the XL4 and up OCS products. But it's only a few dollars, it's pretty economical. We highly recommend the CsCAN double plug if you're using CsCAN SmartSticks or CsCAN SmartRail. Okay, I think you found, hopefully, if you're a user of SmartRail or SmartSticks, that CsCAN double plug could be really useful in your application, and it's really easy to get. It's available as a wiring accessory from our website or from your local distributor. We almost always have them in stock. And keep in mind, though, that it is standard on the XL Series OCS from the XL4 on up, and it's also standard on SmartBlock. However, it's a great option, as we showed in the video, for SmartSticks and SmartRail. All right, time for the next hack. This one has to do with SmartRail I/O wiring. With this hack, we're going to focus on SmartRail I/O. So we're once again have our CsCAN SmartRail base here, and now we're going to focus on these I/O modules that are plugged into the SmartRail. This one happens to be a 16-point DC input module. This is a 4-channel analog input. Now these are the standard plugs that are available from the factory. Now they're perfectly fine plugs, okay? They're screw type. The screw operation is here, okay, on the side, which works fine, but it is a little inconvenient. Let's say if you need to work on this wire here, there's no good way to get your screwdriver in there to work on that conductor unless you remove either this connector and hold it in your hand, or maybe get this one out of the way. And the more wires you have landed, the more that becomes problematic. The other thing is screw type plugs, while we're all used to them, they do take a lot more effort, or time at least, to land a conductor versus something, let's say, like a spring clamp. So let's take a look at our next hack, which are these SmartRail spring clamp style optional plugs. So let's replace the standard factory connectors with these spring clamp plugs, and let's take a look at what this does to help us maybe solve a couple dilemmas here, or at least to make some improvements. All right, you'll notice they fit nicely right in the same headers there, okay? And now it's pretty obvious we can work on any cable from directly above without having any of the other modules connectors getting in the way. Also, this is a pretty quick connection if you basically just do something like that to make a connection. A little bit quicker, I would say, than turning a screw several times. So this is really a nice option for those of you who use SmartRail I/O. Once again, there's nothing wrong with the screw type connectors that come with the SmartRail. However, these spring style do make it a lot easier. And we'll talk about here in our next segment, we'll talk about the part numbers and how you order them and all those sorts of things. So that's the spring clamp connectors for SmartRail. That's our next hack. Okay, the SmartRail spring clamp terminal blocks. I know I really prefer those when I'm working with SmartRail, and I know a lot of OEMs do as well. It really helps your wiring be a lot faster, and it gives you access to any wire from the front without involving any other terminal block on any other module. Now, just like our double CsCAN plug, these are available as a wiring accessory on our website or from your distributor. Now, how do you know which plug you need for which module? Well, every SmartRail datasheet for every module shows you under specifications, and I've highlighted it there, the optional spring clamp terminal part number. Okay, and that part number will be in the form of HE599 TRM0XX, and the last 2 digits, the X's there, will represent the number of positions, either 8, 9, 10, 11, or 15. And again, check that SmartRail datasheet for the SmartRail I/O modules you're using, and you'll find that information right there. Okay, let's go to the next hack. Hack number 3 has to do with CsCAN network wiring inside the control panel. Okay, for our next hack, we're going to turn our attention back to CsCAN. One question I get from customers all the time is, I've only got my OCS in the door and then maybe one expansion base on CsCAN. Do I really need to run down 6 or 10 feet of special CAN cable, something like this. This is only about a 2-foot section, but all I need is just a really short section. Where can I get 6 or 10 feet? And is there any alternatives to that? And basically the answer is yes, there is an alternative to that. And let me tell you about it. So basically, if all you're doing is going to be running within your panel, there's absolutely nothing wrong with using category cable, Cat 5, Cat 6, something like that, and unshielded is perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong in using category cable between your OCS and your I/O base. Here I'm just showing standard category cable, and with category cable you only need a few conductors, and we'll talk about exactly which ones in the next segment. And I'm using this double plug here, which means I have a dedicated location to land my power wiring, because remember, we're not going to want to run our DC power to power our I/O block from the category wiring. We're going to want to do that with a couple of separate conductors, and this particular plug makes it really easy. And again, there's nothing wrong at all if your network never leaves your enclosure for using category wiring to make that connection. It's obviously a lot cheaper. Everybody has category wiring sitting around. It'll just work really well. And if you happen to have a micro OCS product that has a RJ45 connection for CAN, that makes it even better, because now you can either take a pre-wired RJ45 patch cable and just cut off part of it to terminate on the I/O side, or of course if you're comfortable in making your own category cables and putting these style of connectors on there, of course you can do that as well. But again, we'll talk about in the next segment what the restrictions are. But frankly, if your network never leaves the enclosure, category cable as CAN wiring in this sort of scenario works terrific. Now I wonder how many of you knew that Cat 5 and Cat 6 wiring can be used for CsCAN wiring inside of a control panel. Well, some of you may have. We have covered it before in our CsCAN installation video. But anyway, typically you're going to want to use unshielded LAN cabling. Okay, that's usually the easiest to work with, and within your control panel, generally, there's no need for shielding. Okay. And you can safely use category wiring inside the control cabinet with 8 drops or less. And you should continue to use standard termination, the terminators that are included in the package with your OCS. You should continue to use those resistors, those 120 ohm resistors, even though the resistance of category cabling is typically 100 ohms. But ignore that and just use the 120 ohm resistors included with the OCS. Now, in terms of expanding our use of category cabling for CsCAN outside of the control panel, expect to see some expanded recommendations when we release our anticipated OCS I/O family, which is our new expansion and remote I/O that we'll be releasing later in 2022. That utilizes category cabling, so expect to see additional recommendations at that time. Now, some additional details that are probably good to have, and that is there are only really 3 conductors that are needed when you're using Cat 5, Cat 5e, Cat 6, etc. with CsCAN. And those are the communications pair, which is the orange pair, and then the green-white conductor, which is used for V-, because you still need a common. So those 3 conductors are all you need, the orange pair, as well as the green-white conductor for V-, and you're all set. Now, occasionally, companies will utilize category wiring for the V+ power connector, and that, when it happens, goes over pin 4, which is the blue conductor. But generally, what I showed you at least was running the power through separate conductors, just your traditional 16 gauge wire or 18 gauge wire, something like that. Okay, on to our next hack. Connecting traditional twisted pair serial wiring to modular jacks. This next hack comes into play for most of our products and frankly a lot of our competitors as well. This just happens to be the X5 I'm showing here. And that is the fact that as automation products have shrunk in size, their number of connections hasn't necessarily gone down. So what we have now is the proliferation of the modular jack. Just on the X5, we have Ethernet, CAN, and serial ports that utilize the modular jack. Now most of us know we can use patch cables or standard Ethernet cabling for Ethernet. I just told you how you can also use category cabling for CAN, but most of us don't use category cabling for serial ports. Usually we're used to using dual twisted pair with an overall shield or something similar to this when we're talking serial type connection. So I get customers all the time asking, how do I get cables like this plugged into a connector like that? Well, we've got the answer for you with our next hack, and that is the Horner modular adapter. This takes modular type connections and transforms them over to a terminal strip. So now you can plug this guy in, and the next thing you know, you have screw terminals available for your modular jack. Makes getting this sort of cable connected to that sort of connector much easier. Okay, I think a lot of you have already discovered this particular hack because this accessory, the HE200 MJ2 TRM, has been one of our most popular accessories for some time. You can get it from our website or your local distributor. Of course, it's the HE200 MJ2 TRM. Love that part number. And as I stated in the video, it works great adapting your traditional dual pair shielded serial cable to a modular jack. And of course, all OCS models use modular jacks, as do many other automation products as well. All right, time for the next hack. This one has to do with working on your XL Series OCS at your desk. This next hack, I bet, is one that several of you have already taken advantage of if you're an XL Series OCS user. And that is the fact that if you've got DIN rail available either in your desk area or in the lab, and you're working on an XL Series OCS, I bet you've taken advantage of the DIN rail mechanical assembly here, or latch, that's at the back of pretty much all XL Series OCSs that have I/O built in. So as long as you're using, a Model 2 through a Model 6 that has built-in I/O, that DIN rail latch will be there, even though those products that are above, let's say, 4 inches in size are not designed for permanent mounting on DIN rail. This is an XL4. We've also got an XLE and an XLT in this same package, and their DIN rail latch is designed to permanently mount these guys on DIN rail if that's what you choose to do and not put them in the door. But if you've got a 7 or a 6 or a 10, you certainly don't want to permanently mount that unit on the DIN rail latch. But when it's on your desk or in the lab and the DIN rail is handy, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. Now, a couple more things. For some of you who don't have DIN rail in your desk area and you want to keep things like an XL Series OCS in place, or maybe you've got a drive or something and the cabling is kind of forcing it to move all over your desk and it's driving you crazy, one thing I found that I absolutely love is this thick acrylic double-sided tape. This stuff, you just cut off a hunk of it, attach it to the back of whatever gear you're working on, put it where you want to put it, and it'll stay there. Now, the great thing is when you're ready to get rid of it, all you do is do a little twisting action with that object that's taped down, and boom, it comes right up and doesn't leave any trace whatsoever. Now, sometimes the problem is maybe you've got cabling or wiring that's just unruly or something, and you'd like to kind of tape it temporarily to make it behave, but you don't want to leave a mess at the end. Well, another good option is basically, from a hack standpoint, is this gaffer's tape. Gaffer's tape is a lot like duct tape, but it doesn't have any of the issues with leaving residue when you get rid of it, when you take it off. And it comes off a lot easier than duct tape, even though it holds things where they need to be while it's in place. So again, that's a hack for you. Take advantage of the DIN rail if it's handy. If it's not, you've always got double-sided thick acrylic tape as well as gaffer's tape as options to keep your desk area in line. Okay, this is probably another one that many of you have already taken advantage of. I wonder how many of you have hung your EXL10 units from DinRail or had enough guts to do that. If you're careful, it should work fine. Again, only the XLE, XLT, and XL4 are designed for permanent DinRail mounting. The rest of the models still have that clip on there, and you can take advantage of it at your desk if you're careful. And we also mentioned a couple other tapes in that particular segment. And these are kind of what I call these the keep it where you want it type tape for your desk. Gaffer's tape is available everywhere. It's really useful. Again, doesn't have the residue left behind like you do with duct tape. And then that thick acrylic double-sided tape that I referenced and showed you in that segment, that stuff is awesome. I use it all the time in my desk area and in my lab just to keep things where they need to be kept. And the great thing about both of those options is there's no residue, no damage when they need to be removed. All right, next hack. Final one. Hack number 6, a kind of crazy micro OCS desk arrangement. Okay, this last hack I think really does qualify as a hack. Some hacks are kind of crazy. I think this one's at least a little bit crazy. So I think a lot of you have probably noticed on our channel that a lot of the times when I'm demonstrating our products with, let's say, the micro OCS series, my demonstration system utilizes an overhead camera, obviously from above. So one of the qualities of the micro OCS is that it has all of its connections, all its wiring connections for I/O and power and networking and all those sorts of things are done on the back. So with an overhead camera here, how do I keep the micro OCS behaving up off the tabletop, sitting up nice and straight and not rolling or jostling all over the table, even when I have a lot of wires connected? Well, my hack to do this, again, is a little bit crazy. What I've done here is I've mounted what they call furniture leveling glides on the bottom of my micro OCS. Now, you're probably thinking, my gosh, he drilled a hole in the back of his micro OCS, or 3 holes in this case. No, I did not, actually. What I am using here are these flange nuts. These are just 1/4 flange nuts, and they're adhered to the plastic on the back of the micro OCS with this acrylic no trace sticker, which you can get from Amazon. The glides and the nuts, I got those at the local hardware store, and the acrylic no trace stickers, I had to order those from Amazon. And these have really worked well. Even when I have a lot of I/O wiring and the network wiring connected, really the micro OCS has behaved itself on the table so I can take good shots of it. And you can really use this, even though it's a little crazy, with your setup. If you've got a micro OCS and you've got a wire to the back of it, maybe with our I/O simulator or maybe with something else, and you know it's kind of flying all over the desk and it's not staying put and it's a little bit of a mess and it's driving you crazy, well, you can go to the hardware store and pick you up some furniture leveling glides and some flange nuts and the appropriate no trace stickers, and you can keep it up off the table, off your desk, and keep it behaving while you do your testing. And if it's still maybe not staying exactly where you want it, you could even, I don't have to do it very often, but you could use some more of these acrylic no trace stickers to keep those leveling glides in exactly the place that you want them. So anyway, I'd say this one definitely counts as a Horner hack, but I thought I would share it with you today. Okay, if you're adventurous like I am and you want a solution for keeping wires under control under your micro OCS at your desk, then, you know, for a few dollars at your local hardware store, probably 10 or so total by the time you find everything, you can get these furniture leveling glides by 3M. I bought mine from Lowe's. They had them in stock. I think you shouldn't have any trouble finding 1/4 flange nuts. Those should be available from your hardware store. And then this acrylic no trace double-sided adhesive stickers, the round ones I'm showing there on the screen, Those are made of the same material as that big roll of thick acrylic tape I showed you before. They're just pre-cut out in circles and they're not as thick either, but they do the job pretty well. Well, I hope that was fun for you, and that kind of wraps up the hacks that we wanted to share with you today. Okay, before we close, a couple reminders. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to our channel. It doesn't cost anything, of course, and if you choose to subscribe and enable notifications, you'll be notified every time we go live or every time we upload a new video. And speaking of going live, we do so every Tuesday at 2 o'clock, and even if, like this week, it's a pre-recorded video, we always have someone standing by live to answer your questions as they come up. Also, we've got March's schedule coming, and check our website for all the details for all the videos you'll see for the remainder of March. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. We look forward to talking to you next week. Please, everyone, stay safe out there.